Hi, I'm Chance with Broken Tractor, and this is Chris. Today we're going to show you how to rebuild hydraulic cylinders on case backhoes. This will also apply to case dozers and case skid steers.
Today we're going to be removing the clam cylinder and repacking it. This one actually is held by bolts and nuts. Most of the case cylinders are all holding the pins in by snap rings. Now I've removed these already, and then I'll remove the two lines. And then, yeah, that's good right there. Okay, after I removed it, I took it to a vise and I broke it loose. You need something to hold it still. It's a bad location on the clam cylinder to actually have the machine help you by holding it still, because you can always break it loose on the machine if it's in a better location, like the lift cylinder or like laying the dipper down. You can get to those easier. This one here is not so. But before you ever do take the gland out, look for these little screws. This screw came out between the gland and the tube. It's a drilled hole here. When Case puts them together, they drill a hole, thread this in there. What can happen is Case will actually, these will actually break off. There's a possible chance the head gets snapped off and it's still in there. Or if someone has been in the cylinder before, they don't put them back in. But just make sure, because if it is broke off, you'll have to drill it out before you can actually unscrew the cap. Yeah, this is the spanner wrenches we carry. This is what it'll do pretty much most of the backhoes, dozers, and skid steer cylinders. Two different size pins for all depends on the bigger the cylinder, the larger the pin. Like this one's a smaller cylinder, so it's a 1/4 inch side. And all you do is you clean these. You got 4 holes here. You clean 2 of them out just so you can get this in there, and just unscrew them. Vise sometimes you need it to hold it better, hold it still, but this one's already broke loose for us. That's after removing the rod and the piston gland out. Now we got to get the bolt off the end to get the piston off. Okay, these most of the time are Loctited in there. So what I end up doing is I usually take a torch, heat the bolt head hot, let it cool for a minute, then I'll break it loose. This is, I can have this all off here. Yeah. Okay. Now I've got the piston off and also the gland out. Now all I'll do is I'll clean these up and I'll remove the packing and the O-rings off of both units. Flexible and oil. Taking the gland out, I always use a screwdriver and a hammer. I just put it down right behind that, tap it a few times, work it around. Usually if you get it far enough, you start to pry it out. In the gland, I've removed all of the components out of it already. There was this inner wiper seal, which I usually just take a screwdriver and a hammer, and I just put it in the seal area, shove it in far enough, and I can rip it out that way. Then the fiber packing here for the rod guide, I usually just use a little hook screwdriver to just get under that lip and flip it out of the inside. Some cylinders from Case have an extra seal ring inside. This particular one does. Sometimes you will have leftover pieces in the kits. All depends. If it's there, use it. If not, throw it away. Now on the piston, this one will have a guide here, and this is the actual packing here. I already took a razor blade and cut this one off because the original cases were all one piece. The aftermarket ones are an actual, they have a slit in this one, and this one's actually got a Z-cut in this one here. I've got the piston all cleaned up. Everything's torn apart. So now we're gonna put it all back together. I'll start with just the rubber buffer ring inside, packing.
And the Z-split on that seal is there specifically for that, so it gives you more room to open it up and put it in, and that way you're not soaking it overnight to be able to stretch it and then shrink it.
Now I'm gonna install the seals into the gland. This here is the internal wiper seal, and what it does is this one actually keeps the oil in. You always want to make sure the V part faces the pressure. So the gland is facing upright. I'm going to install it the V facing down. Okay, here's the seal installed. If you can barely see, the V is facing this downward towards the cylinder oil. Now I'll install the other buffer ring inside. And this one also the same, the cup faces down. And if you're ever not sure, in the Bulldog kits we carry, they all come with a little guidebook on which way the seals do go. facing up or down, all depends where it goes in the cylinder. Now I'll just install the outer wiper seal. This one keeps the dirt and water out of it. All I ever use, I just tap it in with a little hammer. You can use...
And that one's got the V open on the outside?
Correct, yeah. The V's on the outside just to scrape off the water, dirt, and debris. I usually use a block of wood or a different type of driver, whatever you have handy. I've already installed the backup ring. It goes on first, and then after that, you just roll in the O-ring.
So the backup ring has the flat outside. The O-ring obviously is the round.
Yep. All the way around. And then I'll just put their fiber wear ring on the inside. Snaps it in the groove. You're all set. So now I just put a little oil on the seals and then slid the gland down over the rod. Sometimes you get a block of wood and just drop it on there because it is a snug fit from the new packing onto the rod. Then I'll take my my piston, put the piston on there. I've cleaned the threads inside and on here because usually on the bolt, because usually there's Loctite from the previous one. So I just clean those up, put a little Loctite on the bolt, and then I just screw it together.
Which is a very important step. We've had those where they've unscrewed themselves in the cylinder and destroyed it from the inside out when it wasn't sealed with Loctite.
Then I'll put this in a vise and I'll tighten this down. I don't know, use about 3-4 foot of cheater bar or a big 3/4 inch impact. You know, when we put the bolt in, got it torqued, refer to your case service manual for the correct torque specs on the size of the cylinder that you're doing. Now we've got the cylinder rod ready to go back into the tube. All you do is you just slide it down in. Be careful. You'll have to kind of do a little wiggling, because if not, you can actually cut the packing as you install it. After we get this down inside, I'll push the rod in some, then I'll push the gland down to the thread start, and then I'll tighten it, start tightening up. On case cylinders, they did a really good job of putting the part number stamped into the gland on most of all their cylinders after early mid-70s, on all their backhoes, dozers, and not the excavators, but the skid steers. We don't need this all the time, but in certain cylinders, the older machines, they have a 1-piece or a 2-piece piston, and that part number there will designate what kit you actually need. In a couple other applications, it'll also be the diameter of the bore. Rather than trying to guess at it or tape measure, you just give us that stamp number and we can tell what cylinder you have and the kit you'll need.
All right, and we're reusing the spanner wrench to retighten the gland into the tube.
And we're using the machine to give us a help. We have it all repacked. It's ready to go. We're gonna put it on the same way we took it off. Pins, hydraulic lines, and ready to use it. So now you see we've reinstalled the cylinder, hooked the lines up, put the pins in, ready to go. Whenever I've done this in the past, I always start the machine up, let it run, and I stroke the cylinder out a few times just to bleed any of the air out of the system, and you're all ready to use it. Feel free to contact us at Broken Tractor if you have any problems or questions with your parts on your cylinders. We're here to help best we can. If you need anything, give us a call, 800-909-7060.